This is 13 Minutes. I'm Elliot Reeves. My guest today is Declan McLaughlin. Dec, how are you, my friend?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm great. Great to catch up virtually, of course. The new normal now.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how many cliches I can stick in.
Go for it.
I'll have a bit of cliche bingo as we go along, but
I look forward to it. So, for anyone that isn't familiar with you, just a very sort of high level overview as to who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. I wear a few hats, sometimes literally. So I run my own nutrition business, Declan McLaughlin Nutrition, and my sole focus there is a simple, sustainable, and scientific approach to healthy eating. I'm all about flexibility, so 80-20 rule is one of my biggest principles. I also run the Startup Grind Edinburgh chapter, and that is designed to connect entrepreneurs and help to educate them and bring everybody together as a close-knit community. And I also work for a tech startup, and we look after people's backs through a robotic therapy device.
I like it. That's a lot of things going on.
Yeah. try and get enough sleep most days, but
yeah. So how's the Startup Grind stuff going? I know that you had Gavin Oates like reasonably recently on.
Yeah, that's been a real positive note actually, and we've gone completely virtual, which has been a real learning curve in many ways. We're chatting just before we went on, got a new microphone, and you can probably see as part of the kit.
Love it.
And I think that's been great. And I think what's been really good about it is it's allowed us to reach more people who may not have been able to attend events before.
Yeah.
And it's something you don't really think about. There's people, I guess, who have kids at home needs to look after in the evenings, or they live quite far away from the city centre. And having people like Gavin Oates just mind-blowing, and very, very grateful for it. So
yeah, awesome guy.
Yes, indeed.
So let's speak a little bit about lockdown. You mentioned working remotely, obviously. I mean, how have you been managing yourself throughout this time period?
Great question. I've tried to... There's a couple of things I do that might sound funny at first, but I'll try and justify them to a certain extent. I've tried to stick to the same routine as normal, and I think that sense of normality has been a massive help. One of the things that I do in the mornings is I'll go for a long walk before starting work. And I think I read this online about a month ago, and it does sound mental at first, but I think it does definitely help a lot, is where you actually recreate your commute. So my normal commute to work is about a 30-minute walk. So I'll leave the flat, do a nice walk in the morning, and then come back as if I'm coming into the office. And by office, I mean the corner of my kitchen with a new desk that I got 6 weeks ago and put together took about 6 hours, took ages, but that's been a massive help.
So walking to work without walking to actual work?
Yeah, which I know is actually mental, but it's been great. And I think that, as well as really getting geared up for the day, I'm really big on morning routines, which again I know it probably gets a bad reputation now, where it's 2-hour yoga sessions, it's fasting, it's meditation, and obviously I think people do exaggerate it a bit too much, but I do think that we do need this time in the morning to get ready and just gear up, and it's like a warm up.
Yeah.
For working. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. In terms of remote working, I mean, you wouldn't know it, but you're a few years younger than me. And I'm just curious as to being, I guess you're probably like considered a digital native. How naturally does it come to be working
Mm.
from home remotely?
It's a really good question, and I'm feeling very fortunate with the work that I'm doing, where we individually, so we got a team of about six based in Edinburgh, and there's been times over the past year or so where one or two of us have been working remote, and the other three or four in the office, and we've actually been it's been very smooth, and yeah, every time I mention it, it's been almost too smooth to be true, which is it's definitely a good thing. But I think it's a very natural transition actually, and I hear a lot of thought leaders in the tech space speaking about how these changes were inevitable, and it's almost as if we've just sped them up
Yeah.
by quite a significant amount.
Hmm.
And one thing that's always I really resonate with is all about commuting time. And I already feel very fortunate in that my commute is normally a 30-minute walk. But there's people I know who their commute is 2 hours or more from their day gone. And all of a sudden you've got, instead of 8 hour working day, you've got 10, maybe to 12 technically if you
Hmm.
have your commute. And what's been really nice actually is a lot of people forming new hobbies and new habits in this time, which is actually something that we can all take away, I guess, as a positive note. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Which is actually a really nice segue into my next question, which is how do you think the world might change on the back of this?
mm, great question. Two things really come to mind. One of them is that whole work-life balance, rather, and people starting to appreciate the fact that with work, a lot of it does come down to efficiency and really finding a disconnect between the value you add and time. I mean, that's
Hmm.
something I'm a strong believer in because this whole notion of 9 to 5 is very rigid, and I do think that it's a bit out of date, especially in this digital age. And I think almost tying into it, this whole sense of community where I'm not sure about anyone else or maybe the listeners, but I'm reaching out to friends and family too I've not spoken to in a long time because of what's happened. And I really hope moving forward, one of the big changes is also appreciating tech for good with community. I know that's a complete tangent, but I think, especially with social media, and I guess for probably good reasons, it has had a negative rep over the past 4 to 5 years. But I think what I really hope will come out of this is people having a bigger appreciation for the good that it does.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a good example. We're speaking virtually and recording and using all this technology. So that's something I hope will be the case.
Yeah, yeah. I had a conversation a while back with a chap called Professor Harold Haas on Inspired Edinburgh. He's a two-time TED global speaker. He's had over 5 million views on his talks. He
Mm.
created a technology that allows you to get wireless connection to devices via LED lights, which is just like unbelievable. His company's called Pure Li-Fi. Check it out. But
Mm.
like, sort of reiterating what you're saying, he was like, people seem fearful of tech and it's replacing people and the automation and all this sort of stuff. Like, that's positive. You know?
Mm.
I don't like. Why are we not embracing that as a thing? Like, if there's a robot that can replace the function of a human so that the human can do something more enjoyable and more productive, we should be doing that.
Mm.
So yeah, it's interesting. So and so from a more sort of selfish perspective, how would you like to see the world change?
That was a great question. It's funny because I was thinking about the other question, how do you see the world changing? And I had to catch myself and not come back to wellness because I know that's something that I maybe speak about too much. I think one thing I'd love to see is people taking care of themselves and having all these positive habits as the norm. And I think also tying into it, being more flexible with it. I almost see, and I know this is a big generalization, this all or nothing mentality where people either, you know, don't do really anything when it comes to exercise, healthy eating, and they actually look in a negative light at other people. And the whole morning routine thing, I think, is a great example of it, where people sit and think, there's no way I'm getting up at 5 a.m., cold shower for 2 minutes, all these exaggerations. So what I would love to see is this almost middle grounds where people have the best of both. And I think it's so much more sustainable, and you actually get better results, I think, anyway.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I hope can come out of it.
Yeah, I like that answer a lot. Good stuff. What advice or insights would you give to anyone that's having a very difficult time being in lockdown?
It's a great question. And I was thinking about work actually when I was pondering the answer. And one thing that I've always found so useful is breaking down a task or a goal into something tiny and actually going into something smaller than you think. A great example of this could be potentially like writing, and it's something that I'm sure many graduates of all ages can relate to when it comes to dissertation or big pieces of work. And I think this whole principle of, instead of looking at the 10,000 words and thinking, oh my God, that is horrendous, and never starting, and this whole cycle of procrastination, one thing that I love is the whole idea of breaking it down into something tiny. And this could actually be so small that you almost think it's ridiculous. For instance, it could be writing out the title, which is like 5 words, and then it could be planning out your contents page, which takes 2 minutes. And a lot of people think, oh, that will never help, that's doing no work. But I think once you start, and once you just get the momentum, I just think it always works. It's amazing. It's never failed me. So
Good advice. Good advice. Where can people find you, Dick?
Great question. I'm on the normal channels. I say normal, not sure what normal is anymore. So Declan McLaughlin Nutrition on Facebook, Instagram, and I'm also on LinkedIn and Twitter as Declan McLaughlin. There's not that many Declan McLaughlin, so I'm sure one struggle to find me, and be great to chat and catch up.
Awesome. It's been brilliant chatting with you, my friend. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, man. You too. It's always good to catch up.
Very much so.
Virtually, but
I know, right? Yeah, that's it. And please take care of yourself. Stay safe, etc., etc. Just a quick shout out to Gary Farmer and Graham Reed, who have given comments. Graham said commute sounds terrible, lol. Yeah, well, each to their own. Right, Deck, I'll let you get on with your day, but thanks again, my friend.
No problem. Thank you, man.
Cheers.
Great to chat, and we'll speak soon.
Cheers.